My 18-year-old son-in-law was left speechless when he saw me walking out of the room like this. I never thought one ordinary evening would change everything. The house was quiet, filled only with the hum of the ceiling fan, when I stepped out of my room, without realizing he was there. My 18-year-old son-in-law, still adjusting to the new family dynamics, still figuring out his place, looked up at me. An expression on his face said it all. Shock, curiosity, something unspoken that froze us both in that moment. It wasn't just a surprise of seeing me. It was the way his eyes lingered, the way his breath caught, as if time itself had stalled between us. That night became the beginning of a story I never expected to tell. One that would test my boundaries, stir emotions I thought I had buried, and make me question everything I believed about myself. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring you more gripping and emotional stories like this one. Stay with me until the very end, because what started with an accidental encounter turned into a journey filled with tension, discovery, and a truth neither of us was ready to face. This is not just a story about shock. It's about how a single look can unravel a hidden world inside you. The day it all began didn't look any different from the others. The summer sun lingered lazily over suburban rooftops, casting long golden beams across my best friend Daniel's house. I had been staying there for a few weeks. Daniel had insisted I crash at his place after my apartment lease ended unexpectedly. I had nowhere else to go, and his family home had more space than he knew what to do with. At first, it felt a little strange. His family was kind, welcoming, the kind that always asked if you'd eaten, if you were comfortable, if you needed anything. But there was someone in that house who didn't just welcome me. He unsettled me in ways I couldn't explain. Ethan, Daniel's younger brother, 18, fresh out of high school, restless energy buzzing around him like static. He wasn't a kid anymore, though. His height alone said that. Broad shoulders, sharp jawline, an unruly mess of dark hair that never seemed to stay down no matter how many times he combed it. And those eyes, clear, direct, filled with something that made me look away too quickly whenever they met mine. We weren't supposed to notice each other. Not like that. He was Daniel's brother, practically family, off limits by every measure of common sense. But the truth was, from the moment I arrived, I noticed the way he watched me sometimes across the kitchen table, the way he leaned a little too close when we passed in the hallway, the way silence grew thick whenever we were alone in the same room. I told myself it was nothing, just me projecting, just a trick of circumstance, of proximity, until the night it happened. It was late. Daniel had gone out with friends. His parents were away for the weekend, and I had the upstairs to myself. I had taken a shower, steam still clinging to my skin, my hair damp as I stepped into the hallway with only a towel wrapped around my waist. I wasn't thinking, just moving from one room to another. Then I saw him, Ethan, standing at the end of the hallway, his hand frozen halfway to the doorframe, as if he'd been about to knock. His eyes widened, locking onto me. Not an embarrassment, not exactly. It was something else, something heavier. I stopped dead, heart hammering. Ethan, but I couldn't finish, because his gaze didn't shift. It traveled, slowly, carefully, from my wet hair to the drops sliding down my collarbone, down the towel clinging to my hips. His lips parted slightly, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. The silence was unbearable. My pulse roared in my ears. I tightened my grip on the towel and forced a nervous laugh. Guess I should have, checked the hallway first. He swallowed hard, his voice low when it finally came. I didn't expect, he cut himself off, looking away for the first time, his cheeks flushed with heat. Something twisted in my chest. I should have stepped back into my room, should have ended the moment, but my feet didn't move. Instead, I found myself saying softly, "You look like you've seen a ghost." His eyes snapped back to mine, and this time there was no mistaking it. The spark, the question hanging between us. My skin burned under his stare. I cleared my throat, trying to steady my voice. "What were you doing up here?" He hesitated, shifting his weight. I was going to ask if you wanted something to eat. But now he stopped, exhaling sharply. "Forget it." I should have let him go, but my voice betrayed me. Ethan, wait. He froze, hand still on the doorframe. The hallway light flickered faintly, shadows stretching between us. I didn't know what I was doing, what I was about to say. All I knew was that something had cracked open in that moment. Something I couldn't push back down. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, I said, the words tumbling out. This, me being here, it's already strange enough. Ethan turned slowly, his expression unreadable now. His voice was quieter, almost steady. I don't feel uncomfortable. The air thickened. My chest tightened. His words should have been harmless, but the way he said them, the weight in his tone, made it clear he meant something else entirely. I gripped the edge of my doorframe, knuckles white. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, to break the tension with some clumsy joke. Another part wanted to step forward, to see if that spark in his eyes was real. Instead, we stood there in silence, two statues carved out of hesitation and heat. Finally, Ethan shifted, his jaw tight. I should go, he said quickly, already turning toward the stairs. My voice came out before I could stop it. Ethan. He stopped, looking back over his shoulder. His eyes, so young but so certain, locked on mine. And in that split second, I knew this was no accident. No misread glances. Something had been building between us all along, and tonight it had finally broken the surface. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say, I feel it too, but the words died in my throat, because just as I opened my mouth, Daniel's voice echoed from downstairs. The front door slammed shut. Hey, I'm back. Ethan stiffened. His eyes flicked toward the stairs, then back to me. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. And then he was gone, his footsteps retreating fast, leaving me alone in the hallway, still dripping, still clutching my towel, heart pounding with the weight of what had almost happened. I leaned against the wall, breast shaky, every nerve on fire. Tonight had changed something. I didn't know what came next, but I knew the truth. Ethan wasn't just Daniel's brother anymore. He was a secret thought I couldn't push away. And sooner or later, I'd have to face what that meant. The morning after that hallway moment, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror without replaying everything in my mind. The way his eyes had lingered, the way his voice had dropped lower than I'd ever heard it, the way my own heart had betrayed me by pounding harder than it should have. I splashed cold water on my face, gripping the sink like it could ground me. But no matter how many times I told myself it was nothing, my reflection gave me away. I looked different. I felt different. Downstairs, the smell of coffee and pancakes filled the kitchen. Daniel was already seated, scrolling through his phone, half listening to the morning news on TV. Ethan stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with an ease that made me pause in the doorway. For once, his messy hair caught the sunlight in a way that made it hard to look away. He glanced up at me, just for a second, before focusing back on the skillet. That look was enough to unravel my composure. Morning, Daniel said absently, not looking up from his screen. Morning, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Ethan slid a plate of pancakes onto the table, his hand brushing mine when he passed me the syrup. It was brief, maybe accidental, but it sent a jolt through me. My eyes darted to him, searching for a sign that he had felt it too. He only gave me a small, almost imperceptible smile. Daniel didn't notice a thing. He was rambling about plans for the weekend. Some party, some people he wanted me to meet, but I barely heard him. My focus kept drifting back to Ethan, to the unspoken electricity between us, to the memory of his voice saying, I don't feel uncomfortable. Later that day, Daniel left to run errands, tossed his keys in the air as he headed out the door. You guys don't burn the place down, he joked. The silence that followed after the door shut was deafening. Ethan leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me. My chest tightened under the weight of his gaze. You're quiet today, he said. I'm fine, I answered too quickly. He tilted his head. Are you? There was again that directness. Ethan didn't waste time dancing around feelings. He looked at me like he could read every thought I was trying to hide. And maybe he could. I tried to distract myself by cleaning the already spotless counter. About last night. He cut me off, his tone even. You don't have to explain. I know what I saw. I froze. My hand tightened around the rag. And what did you see? He stepped closer, closing the space between us. My heart thundered. I saw you, he said simply. Not just physically. I saw the way you looked at me. Like you were afraid of it. My throat went dry. I wanted to deny it, to brush it off, but the truth was lodged too deep. Maybe I was, I admitted softly. He exhaled, and for a moment, I thought he might reach for me. But instead, he stepped back, running a hand through his hair. You don't have to be. The rest of the day passed in a blur. We avoided direct conversation, but the air between us was charged. Every glance lingered too long. Every accidental touch burned hotter than it should have. By evening, the tension had grown unbearable. Daniel was still out, and the house was wrapped in quiet. I found Ethan in the living room, sprawled across the couch with a book in his hands. He looked up when I entered, eyes locking on mine like he'd been waiting. You ever feel like you're living in someone else's skin? I asked before I could stop myself. He studied me, setting the book aside. All the time, he admitted. But lately, it feels more like I'm trying to grow into my own. Something about his honesty disarmed me. I sat across from him, hands clasped tightly. I don't know what to do with this. I confessed. With what? He asked. Those eyes told me he already knew. With how I feel when you look at me like that. I said, the words trembling in the air. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned forward, then stopped running from it. My chest ached. The space between us felt thinner than paper. If I reached out, if I said one more word, I knew everything would change. But just as the moment swelled, headlights cut across the window. Daniel's car pulling into the driveway. We jerked back into our seats, hearts pounding, faces flushed. The front door opened seconds later, Daniel stepping inside, laughing about some story from store. He glanced at us, oblivious to the storm raging in the room. What's up? You guys look like you've seen a ghost. I forced a laugh, my voice too high. Just tired, I said quickly, but Ethan's eyes stayed on me, steady, unreadable. And in that silent exchange, I realized we were no longer just two people brushing past each other in hallways. We were something fragile, dangerous, undeniable. That night, lying awake in the guest room, I replayed every word, every glance. Ethan's voice echoed in my head, then stopped running from it. Could I step into the unknown, risk everything that felt safe for something that terrified me as much as it thrilled me? I turned onto my side, staring into the dark. My heart knew the answer. My mind refused to admit it. And somewhere in the room next door, I imagined Ethan awake too, wondering the same thing. But one truth had become clear. We were on a path neither of us could walk back from. The only question left was, what would happen when the next line was finally crossed? Sleep had become a stranger. For the next few nights after that charged moment in the living room, I lay awake listening to the silence of the house. Every sound magnified. The creak of a floorboard, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft movement of someone pacing down the hallway. And every time I thought it was Ethan, my pulse would quicken, only for the sound to fade. I kept asking myself what I was doing. Daniel had opened his home to me, trusted me like a brother, never suspecting that every day I was inching closer to a truth that could blow our lives apart. Ethan wasn't just Daniel's younger brother anymore. He was the gravity pulling me off balance, dragging me into something I had no map for. That Saturday, Daniel suggested we all drive out to the lake. Last weekend before I start my new job, he said brightly over breakfast, "We'll grill, swim, relax." I forced a smile. Sounds good. Ethan glanced at me across the table. His expression gave nothing away, but the flicker in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. This day was going to be dangerous. The lake sat 30 miles outside of town, hidden by pines and quiet trails. When we arrived, Daniel busied himself with setting up the grill near a picnic bench, humming as he unpacked supplies. Ethan and I carried coolers from the trunk in silence. His hand brushed mine as we set one down, and I nearly dropped the handle. He smirked slightly, knowing the effect he had. "Don't," I muttered under my breath. Don't what? He asked innocently. Don't play like this. He leaned closer, his voice low enough for only me to hear. Who said I was playing? Before I could answer, Daniel called out, "Hey!" Grab the matches from the glove compartment, will you? I turned quickly, grateful for the excuse to escape. But as I walked back to the car, my mind reeled. This back and forth with Ethan was a fire I couldn't put out, and it was starting to consume me. By late afternoon, the smell of grilled food filled the air. We ate, laughed, pretended everything was normal. Daniel decided to take a nap in the shade after lunch, stretched out on the bench with his hat pulled low over his eyes. That left Ethan and me at the shoreline, the water lapping softly at our feet. You ever feel like you're carrying a secret too heavy to say out loud? I asked, my eyes fixed on the ripples. Ethan skipped a stone across the surface, watching it bounce. Every day, he admitted. But sometimes the weight gets lighter when you let someone else hold it for a while. I turned to him, my chest tightening. And who do you trust with yours? He looked straight at me, his voice steady. You. The air between us seemed to still. My throat went dry. He wasn't smiling, wasn't teasing. He meant it. I opened my mouth to respond, but the sound of footsteps made me jerk back. A group of locals had arrived at the lake, rowdy teenagers with beer bottles in hand. They laughed loudly, tossing stones into the water, their voices echoing through the trees. One of them glanced our way, his expression souring when he saw Ethan standing close to me. "Hey," he sneered. "You two on a date or something?" Ethan stiffened. My stomach dropped. "Relax," I said quickly, trying to defuse. But the group didn't let up. Another chimed in, laughing. Didn't know this lake was for couples like that. Daniel stirred at the bench, half awake, but didn't hear enough to understand. Ethan's jaw clenched, his fists tight at his sides. "Ignore them," I whispered, but the boys kept jeering, throwing words like stones. Something inside Ethan snapped. He took a step forward, voice sharp. "Say that again." I grabbed his arm, heart racing. "Don't, Ethan. They're not worth it." He shook me off, his eyes blazing. For a terrifying second, I thought he'd swing at them, but instead, he spat into the dirt and turned away, walking back toward the trees. The group laughed louder, satisfied with their victory. I followed him into the shade, my chest heaving. "What were you thinking?" He rounded on me, voice raw. "I'm tired of hiding, tired pretending I don't feel what I feel." The words hit me like a blow. My breath caught, my grip tightening on a tree trunk for balance. "Ethan," he stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You feel it too. Don't lie to me." I couldn't. My silence was answer enough. His eyes softened, but the fire in them didn't fade. And then it happened. He reached out, brushing his fingers against my cheek. The touch was tentative, searching, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting myself feel it, the warmth of his hand, the electricity racing through me. But before either of us could take the step we both wanted, Daniel's voice carried from the clearing. "You guys coming back? Food's getting cold." We jumped apart like guilty conspirators, hearts pounding, faces flushed. Back at the picnic bench, Daniel grinned sleepily, unaware of the storm swirling just a few feet away. Ethan and I avoided each other's eyes, but the silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full, brimming, dangerous. That night, back at the house, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My skin still tingled where he had touched me. His words replayed in my head on a loop. "I'm tired of hiding." And I knew then that the line between us had already been crossed. The question now wasn't if we would step further, but when and what it would cost when we did. Because secrets like this don't stay secrets forever. And I wasn't sure I was ready for the fallout when ours finally came to light. I had always imagined that clarity would come like a thunderclap, loud and undeniable, a sudden burst of truth. But the reality was quieter, heavier, like a slow tide that rises until you realize you're already standing waist-deep in water. By the time everything came to a head, I was exhausted from running in circles. Ethan's words from the lake, "I'm tired of hiding," kept haunting me, and the way his hand had lingered against my cheek had branded itself into my memory. Every night, lie awake in the guest room. I replayed the moment over and over, asking myself if I had the courage to let it mean what I knew it did. But fate didn't wait for me to find courage. It cornered me instead. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Daniel had invited a few friends over to watch a game, and the house was filled with laughter, pizza boxes, the crack of soda cans. I tried to focus on the noise, to drown myself in the crowd, but my eyes kept drifting to Ethan, leaning against the wall, half listening to the game, his gaze always flicking back to me. At halftime, I stepped out onto the porch for air. The sun was low, casting orange light across the yard. My chest felt tight, like every breath was too shallow. I thought I was alone until the screen door creaked behind me. Ethan stepped out, quiet, deliberate, his expression unreadable. "You've been avoiding me," he said softly. "I haven't." I started, but the light caught in my throat. He came closer, the porch boards groaning under his weight. "You have. And I get it. This is dangerous. Messy. But I can't keep pretending nothing's there." I swallowed hard. "Ethan." "No," he cut in, voice firm but not angry. "You don't get to brush me off again. You feel it too. I know you do." I turned to face him fully, the fading sunlight catching in his eyes. They weren't the eyes of a boy anymore. They were the eyes of someone choosing to stand in his truth, no matter the cost. And I couldn't deny it anymore. "I do," I admitted, my voice breaking. "God help me, I do." For a moment, silence stretched between us, fragile and infinite. Then he stepped closer, so close I could feel the warmth radiating off him. "Then stop fighting it," he whispered. His lips brushed mine before I could think, before I could panic, before I could stop myself. The kiss was tentative, searching, but it lit something inside me I hadn't felt in years. A fire I'd tried to smother, now burning too bright to ignore. When we pulled apart, I couldn't breathe, not from shock, but from relief. Relief at finally surrendering to what I already knew. But then the sound of footsteps inside jolted me back. Daniel's laughter echoed through the house, and panic surged. I stepped back quickly, heart pounding. Ethan's face fell, hurt flickering in his eyes. "You're going to pretend this didn't happen, aren't you?" I shook my head, torn. "I don't want to, but we have to be careful. This isn't just about us. This could hurt him." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but I can't keep living like a ghost in my own house. If this is real, we have to figure out what it means." Inside, Daniel called our names, asking where we'd gone. I glanced at the door, then back at Ethan. Not now, but soon. And for once, he nodded. He understood. The weeks that followed were the hardest in my life. Every glance, every brush of skin, every stolen moment felt like balancing on a knife's edge. We lived between worlds. One where we were just housemates under Daniel's roof, and another where every heartbeat screamed for more. But slowly, the fear began to shift into something else. Acceptance. It wasn't one moment, but many. The night we stayed up talking until dawn, sharing secrets we'd never told anyone else. The afternoon he found me spiraling with doubt and steadied me with nothing but a quiet hand on my shoulder. The morning he caught me staring too long, and instead of teasing, he simply said, "Me too." By the time winter crept in, I knew the truth. I loved him, not in the reckless, desperate way I feared, but in the steady way that made everything else fall quiet. Telling Daniel was the final test. We waited until the timing felt right, after his new job had settled, after we could no longer keep the weight inside. I won't pretend it was easy. Shock, anger, betrayal, all of it stormed across his face. But underneath it all, there was love too. Love for his brother. Love for me. "I don't understand," he said finally, shaking his head. "But I'll try." And that was enough. Looking back now, sitting here with Ethan beside me, I realized the story wasn't about forbidden glances in hallways or kisses stolen on porches. It was about finding the courage to face myself, to stop running from the part of me I was too afraid to claim. It was about realizing that love doesn't always arrive the way you expect, but when it does, you owe it to yourself to hold it with both hands. So if you're listening to this, if you've ever felt that pull inside you and wondered if it was real, if it was worth the risk, Hear me clearly. It is, don't waste years hiding from yourself. Don't let fear be the loudest voice in your life. Because sometimes love shows up where you least expect it. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let it in